I'll try and breeze through it. I'm supposed to be able to use this clicker. Martin, get me started and then I'll click in. Okay, great. All right, so if you remember, I came to you in May, and basically these were the 5 areas of concern that I had regarding the advisory committees. You had the reports. I'm not going to go through reading them again tonight. And basically after that meeting, you told me that you supported creating a new template that standardizes the language for the advisory committees. You agreed that we need to codify a funding mechanism. There's nothing in the current advisory committee resolutions that relates to funding, even though the city has a mechanism for funding them through department heads requesting during the budget period. And then you agreed that standardizing the goal setting, work plan development would be a good idea as long as it allowed for flexibility and autonomy. That was a big key that I came away with, to let people determine their own goals and objectives. You rejected the idea of specifying how often committees should meet. As a matter of fact, Martin made a big point of that, I remember. And then the committees, the council seemed to be ambivalent about oversight. So with that, I went ahead and did this follow-up course of action. I actually created a standardized advisory committee resolution template. What I did was I reviewed all the original resolutions that created the 4 advisory committees, and then I spoke to Al Musico about creating an ad hoc bite committee resolution. Then I created the template by integrating the 4 common elements that existed in all those resolutions. And then I added additional elements that are related to the funding mechanism and the creation of goals in an annual work plan. Now, just so show you how I did that, I actually sent those documents that I created to all of the members of all the advisory committees. So I sent them out to 28 people, and I told them, do not share this with your committee. Do not talk about it amongst yourselves. Send it back to me, so I didn't violate any sunshine resolutions, sunshine law. And I just wanted to thank the following people who gave me really, really good comments. Michael Welty from WAC, Dave Rasmussen from Beach and Coastal Advisory, Julie McDonald and David Leeser from Beautification, Linda Ryan from Beach and Coastal Advisory, Allison Richards from Parks, Lisa Hogan, I think is also from Parks, and Lindsay Bonner, who I believe is from Boehner from Beach and Coastal Advisory. So they gave me good feedback that I incorporated. So basically what I wanted to do when I got the committee members, I wanted to say, what do you think about the template number 1, standardizing the template, and then number 2, what did you think about standardizing a goal and a work plan document as separate? And I got some really, really good specific comments that I want to share with you. Now, I know you can't read this, but I'm going to jump right past it. This is just the original resolution. Greg's got me speaking overdrive here. That created the Beach and Coastal Advisory Committee. So here's the different parts of it. The first part is the whereases. City Council creates this, whereas. Pretty much, I'm suggesting leave that alone. The middle part is section 1 that says the above recitals are true and correct. Then the second part is the Mark Island City Council hereby creates the Beach and Coastal Resources Advisory Committee consisting of 7 members chosen by the City Council whose terms will be established in accordance with section 2-204 of the code. If you go to that section, you'll see it really speaks directly to what the City Council can do in terms of creating these advisory committees. But there really is nothing in there that says, and these committees shall report to. So that's what I mean by saying nothing related to oversight and accountability. Kind of leave that open to either the city manager or the city council. So I'm going to get back to that. And then in section 3 is what I would call the mission statement, although it's not really referred to as that. So the Beach and Coastal Resources Advisory Committee has chosen a narrative 1-paragraph mission statement, which I really like, and the people that sent me comments also like this because they don't like the idea of having having this as a list because it will change. So I'll show you that with the WAC and how they chose to do it. So this is the narrative form. And then section 4 lists the goals and objectives, but as I'm going to show you, in this case it intertwines them. And the reason I think it's important to separate the goals from the action steps, or goals or outcomes. So beautification, with the beach and advisory, what are one of the things we want to do? We want to protect sea turtles. That's a goal. Now, how are we going to do that? Well, we're going to do public outreach, we're going to do education, we're going to recommend a new ordinance related to lighting. So we're going to take all these action steps, but public outreach is not a goal. Public outreach is an activity, it's a method, it's a way to reach a goal, okay? And as you go through, you'll see that most of their goals are really a combination of activities. All right, now, this is the Waterways Committee, the original resolution. They have the whereases, they have the same section 1, they have the same section 2, but their section 3 is really listing of 4 goals. Now, what people told me in their feedback is they don't like this method of creating an advisory committee resolution because these goals will change. What this does is it locks these goals in as a list form, and they're going to change. So that's one problem with that. And then in both cases, there's no section devoted to funding. So what I wanted to do is create a new template, and I don't know if you people can see this, or if Martin, can we just enlarge this a little bit? I don't know. I'm going to break it down piece by piece. Yeah, never mind. So this is the template, and I'm going to break it down piece by piece. Okay, so the resolution with the whereases will stay the same for all of the advisory committees. This is boilerplate. The second part is the part that I'd like to see standardized. So again, section 1 is fine, section 2 is fine, but I'd like to add this element to section 2, which shows that built into section 2205 of our Code of Ordinance, that there's something that says that members of these committees serve at the pleasure of the City Council and shall report to them via their committee chairperson and staff liaison, and then if we decide to elect a council liaison to that committee through the council liaison. So the lines of communication are real clear here, that their goals and objectives will be reported back through their chairperson to the staff liaison and then to the City Council. And then the last thing is the narrative statement, going with a narrative statement rather than a line list. All right? So section 4 is new. Section 4, for this committee, they'll submit an annual work plan every year to the City Council for their approval. Now, the reason I want to pull the goals and objectives out of section 3 is because they're going to change. We want to have new annual goals. We want to have new annual work plans. And we want those to be determined by the committees in consort with us or with city staff. And then section 5 is the part that I added in that codifies the budget process. And that's one of the things that kind of drove me to standardize these advisory committee resolutions. People came to me and said, how come some committees are spending money and others don't? How come some committees have a budget and others don't? Where is this money coming from? And the simple fact is it's pretty subjective. So I would like to make it a standard part of the template that the committees will have the ability to get a budget, but that budget has to be tied to specific goals and to a work plan. So what this section does is it codifies the budget process, funding, and fundraising. So now all committees will be able to do this as long as they tie those budget requests to specific goals and activities. The other reason I want to do that is because it makes them more accountable. So at the end of the year, we can say, okay, did you meet your goals? Did you do the things that you said you would do in your work plan? Did you spend that $10,000 or 15 or 20 the way you intended to? And then if they did, fine, we'll reward them again next year. If not, we'll say maybe next year you don't get funding. So let me give you an example. Okay, so.
By the way, just
yeah,
interrupt. Folly has two L's, not one.
Okay.
It's pure folly to spell it with one.
Okay. All right, so here's what it looks. You're really good with those double entendres there. So here's what an example of the standardized template would look like for Beach and Coastal Advisory. And once again, I'll pull it out section by section. So resolution creating, we identify the committee. The whereases, the whereases, the whereases all apply to the specific committee we're identifying, in this case, Beach and Coastal Resources Advisory. Section 1 is the same. And Section 2, this is how it would read. The Marco Island City Council hereby creates Beach and Coastal Resource Advisory Committee consisting of 7 members chosen by the council who will be established in accordance to Section 2-204. Pursuant to Section 2-205 of the Code of Ordinances, the Beach and Coastal Resources Advisory Committee members serve at the pleasure of the City Council and shall report to them via the committee chair, the staff liaison, and the City Council liaison. And then Section 3 is the narrative form of what their mission is. And I pulled this right from their resolution. The Beach and Coastal Advisory Resource Committee is charged with identifying short and long-term issues that impact the beach and coastal environment, evaluating potential solutions, and recommending policy and practices to city staff for administrative or council action.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Go back. On Section 2,
Yep.
you've got chairperson, staff liaison, city council liaison.
If we chose to have one.
You could be the same person for both staff and city council liaison, I suppose.
No, what I'm saying is, right now we have a staff liaison. Does one of us want to be the liaison?
Oh, I see, you're
to
talking
that?
about on the city council
Yes,
themselves.
yeah.
Okay.
And we may choose not to do that. I personally like the idea, but I know it adds work. And,
Doesn't put any more burden on staff, that was my
yeah, see, originally I wanted to take the burden off staff. That's why I wanted to have fewer meetings. But again, I heard loud and clear, let people determine how often they want to meet. But that's the point, Mr. Chair. So Section 4 identifies that they have to submit an annual work plan every year. That's approved to the city by the City Council. And then Section 5 talks about the budget. They shall submit an annual budget request to the staff liaison, who will present it to the City Council for their approval during the annual operating budget hearings. All budget requests must be related to activities associated with their approved annual work plan. Any additional funds obtained through outside fundraising must also be related to the approved annual work plan. And that's something that takes into account something exactly like what's going on with Beach and Coastal Advisory and 10,000 Trees, where we've enabled them to do outside fundraising, and that's fine. But now we're saying, you know, how are you going to use those funds? Please tie it to your goals and your work plan. So that's the standardized template. And
Councilor Bolano, just a question on that. I mean, is there a reason why we would want to turn down any privately obtained donor money?
absolutely not.
I mean, so, you know, having them have to go through, you know, if for example, someone wants to donate funds for a particular purpose that was not contemplated in their annual work plan, what would be the process to move that forward? Would they have to go and get the committee to submit a new work plan and then have that approved by council?
Vice Chair, I don't know the mechanism right now for accepting outside funds. I didn't think we had one. I think that's why the Beautification Committee created this linkage to the Collier Community
Well,
Foundation.
clearly the Parks and Rec Department.
Parks and Rec does, but for the other committees, I don't think they have a funding mechanism for accepting funds. So
No, but
Maybe they should.
with beach and, I mean, with beautification, you know, that to me would appear to be a situation that maybe wasn't contemplated when we were talking about 10,000 trees. You know, and it's been an ongoing conversation, but you know, if there was going to be privately donated funds, you know, and how that was going to be handled. I mean, that all kind of came about, I want to say, relatively quickly. I don't want to speak for David Lisa or whatever, because I'm not 100% sure. But it seemed like that came about kind of quickly, and that there was this opportunity with the community fund and all that. And so to have to kind of go back and, you know, reinvent the wheel with an annual work plan when you have someone who's got
you're saying
funds.
to have to tie it into.
Yeah, I'm saying I'm not sure why we would. I like a lot of what you put together here.
Could we do that on the spot? So let's just imagine it's the Waterways Advisory Committee, and the Waterways Advisory Committee asked for $10,000 to do pamphlets and things that they've been doing. And then in the middle of the year, they have a donor that says, I'd like to give you $50,000 for a special clean, to go towards this aeration program. Could we, at that point, could they bring it to the council and just say, we have this request, we didn't anticipate it, so we couldn't tie it into our goals. Can we just edit our goals right now? I have no problem with
Yeah,
that.
well, that's kind of why I think maybe that sentence
Okay,
is unnecessary, because you know what the situation will be? It won't be for the aerator, it'll be for some other thing that we have not even discussed and wasn't part of any type of presentation.
Okay.
There might just be some interested private party out there that
I'll edit that out, because, yeah,
clams or, yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
I think it's probably good just to say, if somebody wants to bring us money, we'll figure out a way to deal with it.
We never turned down money.
Okay, I can see we have support from the community. Okay, I'll edit that and change that. All right. Let me move forward to the goals. So what I wanted to, this is what I did for 28 years. I was a public health educator, professor of public health ed. I taught public health educators how to do programs. And one of the first things we did was state your goals as outcomes and state everything else as an objective, a method, or we're going to call them action steps, because that's what Mike
All
Sheffield.
right, so you're using work plan and goals kind of interchangeable.
Yeah. So a goal, again, they had as their goal conduct public education information programs with condominium boards. That to me is an action step. That's a method. The real goal, the reason we're doing, so why are we doing that? Well, the reason we're doing that is to protect sea turtles. So that's our real goal, is to protect sea turtles. Our other goal is to protect burrowing owls, gopher tortoises, and other protected species. And those action steps are conducting public ed, working with city council to develop and enforce programs. And I put the one in, obtain funding from the city council to continue with the Audubon gopher tortoise study. So that's kind of what I'd like to do is work with these committees and help them establish their goals and measurable action steps. And here, what I did was I went ahead and just gave you some examples of what narrative mission statements would look like. So Waterways Advisory is charged with identifying short and long-term issues that impact water quality, safe boating and navigation, and seawalls and docks. And that's right from what they currently have listed, evaluating potential solutions and recommending policy and practices to city staff. To me, that's what advisory committees do. They advise us so we can make better policy decisions. I don't really think advisory committees should do the work, should do programs. They want to, so God bless them, let them do it. But I think their primary function should be to help us in areas we don't have expertise in. I don't know anything about sea turtles, so give us some advice on policies. All right? And then, so that's some simple statements. So what I'm looking for you for tonight is to a motion to accept the standardized advisory committee resolution template with the changes recommended by the chair and vice chair and members of the audience. Number 2, I'm going to strike, because I had a 2-hour meeting with Al Musico this morning, and he was against creating a bike path committee at the present moment. He said that he's got several things that are in the works that he wants to be allowed to see them through, and going through this whole reorganization now might jeopardize them. And then I know staff doesn't want to create a new committee. I know Dan's not in favor of it. He wanted to merge it with Parks and Rec, and Al's not in favor of that. So I think for the time being, let's just strike that. So the second thing I'm asking you to do tonight is to grant permission to me to meet with these individual advisory committees and their city liaisons to work with them on their goals and to develop their annual work plans. And since I actually wrote that, Casey told me that our new city clerk is willing to help in that process, because she sees that as a function of the city clerk.